All right, hi there. I'm Allie Glenn. I'm going to present a bit of information on the neurological and endocrine pathways associated with breastfeeding. Human lactation is a process that involves many aspects of a woman's body and actually begins during pregnancy. It's around the second trimester the process of lactogenesis actually starts. Lactogenesis is the hormonal and physical changes that occur which cause the production of human milk. The process of lactation is driven by the body's endocrine system, and it works alongside the nervous system in this endeavor. The process is called a neuroendocrine reflex. It has this amazing cascadian action that takes place involving several portions of a body. The endocrine system is essentially a chemical messenger system. Neural pathways are essentially an electrical system. We're going to talk about the main way that a woman's body gets the signal to produce milk for her child, because a brain coordinates responses through different signals that it receives, and then it sends responses to other areas of the body. This process is part of the neural pathway action, which is involved in so many things that we do voluntarily and involuntarily, where receptors of information send signals through the spinal cord to our brains, and it replies with things like hormonal response, release. Sometimes it's that knee-jerk reaction that you have as maybe a mosquito lands on exposed skin and you've slapped at it before you even realize what's just happened. This is an electrically charged process, and it's just simply how our cells are made to operate and to react to stimuli and to respond to stimuli. The signals that we process are either efferent or afferent. So efferent pathways carry signals away from the central nervous system, essentially signals that your brain has sent to tell your body to do something in response to afferent signals. And afferent signals are a response to external tactile stimuli. External stimuli is something that has occurred to the body and signaled the brain to respond to. In the process of lactation, for example, the afferent stimuli would be the suckle of a baby at the breast. The efferent response would be the brain telling the hypothalamus to release hormones such as prolactin, oxytocin. This would be what would cause the letdown reflex, the muscle contraction, the milk ejection. So efferent response isn't voluntary. Things like breathing, blinking, these are just an efferent response. Example, your body just knows what to do and how to do it. And this is really great news because it means that without any effort on a mother's part, her body already knows how to respond to a normal physiological birth process of her child, and it starts milk production for the baby. Afterwards, it's those afferent neurons which bring the signal to the external stimuli that has been caused to the brain, and it allows that to be integrated and processed through the rest of the body. This is also built into the system, and it requires little effort on a mother's part to, quote, make it work. She simply just needs to put the baby to the breast early and often to keep the message of afferent signals coming to the brain, which will keep the brain responding and sending production of signals to the rest of the body. This is an example of sensory processing and integration at its finest. So these two things alone help initiate a strong milk production in the body's feedback loop mechanisms. Let's talk a little bit about the hormones that are involved. Initially, it's the placenta which kicks off the process for the very first feeding. Early on, as the placenta releases progesterone, this stimulates development of milk glands in the breast and prepares them for lactation. Most of us know the placenta as an organ that gives nutrient and oxygen support to the developing baby. However, the placenta itself is an endocrine gland. It's releasing hormones like estrogen, progesterone, relaxin, also human placental lactogen. At the end of pregnancy, the progesterone production in the placenta plummets. This causes a rise in the estrogen levels. Baby also releases hormones. It kind of is this whole system working together. Hormones like oxytocin and prostaglandins are released. These stimulate contractions for the birth and the expulsion of the placenta. A main hormone involved in the lactation process is called prolactin. Another key hormone in breastfeeding is oxytocin. It has other terms of endearment, such as the love hormone. It's also called the cuddle hormone, the mothering hormone. It's also known as an anti-stress hormone. Oxytocin is a hormone that is released as part of that feedback loop in which the external stimuli of the baby at the breast, especially the sensation to the nerve cells at the nipple, sends a message to the brain to release this hormone, oxytocin, which in turn relaxes the mother, triggers the milk release, and fosters those bonds of love and connection to the baby. While oxytocin is used to cause uterine muscle contractions for the birth and the expulsion of the placenta, in the role of breastfeeding, one of its jobs is to cause muscle contraction around the milk glands. These contractions squeeze the milk into the ducts, creating a sensation known as the letdown. And then the baby is able to extract the milk from the breast. Some of the physical breast components involved in lactation, the lobule, alveoli, lactiferous ducts. The lactiferous ducts where the milk is stored, and then as the lactiferous sinus cavities are massaged through the baby suckle, those glands are stimulated. This is that tactile stimulation, which begins that loop process of the signal going up the spinal column to the brain, signaling the hormonal release, which in turn produces milk, which is then secreted out of the breast to the suckling babe. And a fascinating aspect of this entire loop system of information that any slightly experienced breastfeeding mother can tell you is that simply the sound of a baby crying can trigger this entire loop of signals minus the tactile stimulation. That's a pretty amazing system.